Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining this keynote, where we'll explore what can we learn from games that can help us learn better. I'm Kim Chua from the Salesforce Philanthropy team, and I've been developing innovative education programs for the past 6 years, directly applying game concepts to the classroom to drive learning for impact. I've had the chance to partner with educators at all levels, from school districts to teachers, impacting and reaching 500,000 students from around the world. I want to share what we've learned from that and how impactful and transformative it can be. So today, I'm going to present 5 game concepts that, if applied in our education system at scale, can inspire youth globally to solve the world's biggest challenge. And so before we dive into how transformative game concepts can be for learning, let's pause for a second and reflect about and think about some of the challenges that comes with learning using traditional methods. Sometimes it can be a bit boring because you're not really engaged, and when listening to someone talking, it can also feel intimidating, like you have the Mount Everest in front of you. And it could also be lonely, although with some progress that we've done with project-based learning, it could be also very interesting and collaborative, but mainly you're the one learning and you're learning topics in silos, so it often feels lonely. And my cat will sure agree to that. On the other hand, games can also feel very addictive, right? I wish I could take you all on a game to prove my points instead of talking to you. It can also be guided. So mounting the Mount Everest feel like an exciting journey you want to find creative solutions for. And although it's virtual and it can sometimes be pictured as isolating, games can be interestingly social, and if used properly, can really drive a lot of human interactions. And I've seen firsthand how we can leverage game for learning and to make learning extremely motivating, empowering, and celebrated. So let's dive deeper together on how we can break down those 3 challenges and use game with those 5 simple game concepts to do that transformation. So the first challenge that I mentioned is that learning can be boring. And I think there's 2 main reasons for that. The first one is the lack of context. We don't really know why we're learning this and that, nor we understand how does that fit into the bigger picture. And the second piece is that we have no agency. There's only one way forward that everyone needs to follow at the same pace. But I also said that and mentioned that game can be guided. And that's probably thanks to a game concept that is very well used, and that's the concept of maps. I've put examples here from pretty well-known games that have used that concept. And the most common one is the one you see in the center with Zelda, which just allows you to position yourself into the map and understand the world you navigate in. But you can also use maps and map your knowledge or skills like they've done in Super Smash Bros. So you can basically build up your skills and visually see your progress. Sometimes maps are a core part of the gameplay, like it is with Animal Crossing, when you select the map you want to navigate at the beginning of the game and it has huge implication down the line. Or with League of Legends, where the way the map is built directly drives how you play. And so what if we started creating learning maps that the students could navigate? That could simply be put on the board or on the wall in the class, or we could use it by building a game around that concept, like we've done with Age of Makers. Like Suzanne mentioned, Age of Makers is a free online game that works as a Chrome extension where players can navigate different topics and different worlds to learn new skills in order to positively impact the world around them. One of the journey is called Music for Change. And in Music for Change, students are able to learn how to produce a change-making songs to advocate for a social change they care about. And they do so by using the map you see on the right. There's multiple areas that they can navigate at their own pace, and learn about different topics. It allows them to break down those different topics and see how they relate to each other. With the map, they can take distance from learning quite literally this time and really see it from far. Give them visual goals and pathways so they can decide whether they want to start with music theory, lyrics writing, or beats making, and when it's time to combine all those together. And that's just one example, like the other one I'm going to explain today. But I'm actually very excited to hear from you on how you would use map to guide learning and make it more motivating. Another concept that makes games so addictive is the concept of journeys. Journeys can be seen as adventures that the player goes on. So whether it's in the good old Age of Empires, where you would go in campaigns and conquer the world, or Minecraft, where you actually build your own world and the journey that you take on, or Fortnite, where you basically choose the journey that defines the world you play with. It always gives the player a strong sense of agency. And so we can shift learning once again from boring to motivating by letting the learners choose their journey. They can choose their own path, which gives them ownerships in their learning so that they don't even feel like they're learning anymore. A game that does that very well is Powers, that you can see on the right here. It's a new game from a French studio that wants to combine game concepts and education to boost learning. The player is thrown into an open world where they have some missions to complete, all that built into a cohesive story. So although you are playing a game, you're actually learning real skills. So in the door challenge, for example, you're running and doing mental math to stay alive. In another one, you're actually using logic to solve an enigma to open a door. And that spans to geometry, philosophy, astronomy. So that can really be multidisciplinary. And the biggest piece really is what I called purpose-based. So when you learn something or do something with a purpose, you're highly motivated and nothing can stop you. And giving you a purpose is something that games does very well. And so I want to dive deeper on why that's important. Lilo Fever explained that very well in his book, The Art of Explanation. He basically plotted that into two axes. Horizontally, there's your level of understanding, going from less understanding on the left, where basically you don't know anything about the topic at hand, to more understanding on the right. So if you're a ninja, you'll be on the very right. And vertically, there's the balance you need in understanding how versus understanding why. And it gets interesting when you relate the two together. So when you start learning a new topic, you don't know much about, you're on the left end of the spectrum, you mainly need to understand why, understand the purpose behind it. For example, if I start explaining you how to do accounting, getting into tax concepts and such, before you know why on earth you should care about it, it's very likely you'll go the other direction. But if you grasp why and why it's important to, and the roles that accounting plays into making business and society successful, you'll start to want to dive deeper into the how. And the more you understand about the why, the more you can do and you can tackle the how. Unfortunately, the foundation of our education system often puts this concept upside down with a strong focus on the how up front. I deeply believe that inspiring ourselves from games is the perfect excuse to flip this paradigm upside down once again, to put it back into its right order. Because if we don't do that, learning will still be very intimidating. Because when you start learning a new topic and being thrown a lot of the how, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. There's so many things to skill up on. It's hard to know in what order to take it on. And talking about order, it's even hard to find a starting point. It's something that will meet you where you are. Luckily, we have a few more game concepts that can help us mitigate that. The first one being levels. from your console with Call of Duty's ranks to your phone with Pokemon Go. Most of the game provides a clear sense of purpose and progression, with achievable next step to aim for. Age of Empires even combine this with the first concept we talked about and map those levels so you can visually see what you can do in each ages. And so we can then drive motivations with levels, shifting learning from intimidating to empowering. You have achievable milestones that you can take in the order you want. Your progression is phased so that you only see what's relevant next instead of the 100 things you need to complete to get to level 50. And you can track your progress against greater goals. And one of the famous apps that actually leverage that very well is Duolingo, which is an application that you can use to learn your language. And we all know how intimidating learning a new language can be. But hey, getting to level 1 and learning how to name my cat or my socks, that's okay. And then getting to level 2 and so on. And before you know it, you have a big vocabulary under your belt. And to make it even more phased and guided, within all those levels hides another game concept. And so that's the level I mentioned. And so within those, there's the concepts of quests. And so quests are bite-sized adventure that we can take on, which basically could be solving a puzzle like in Monument Valley, or sometimes finding something to do in the vast world of Far Cry. Minecraft even have a quest engine option available. And so at its core, the biggest idea here is to break learning into bite-sized pieces. It's like baby steps. On the right here, you see another example from Age of Makers, where each pin you see on the screen, whether it's red, green, or gray, is a quest, and that gets unlocked as you achieve the previous one. And a quest can be a video to watch, questions to answer, research to do. And the very unique piece with the Age of Makers game is that because it's a Chrome extension, you can make any website a quest like we did here with BandLab, which is a music production tool, and gives you the instructions on the right. So as an educator, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, and you can really leverage all the tools available online in a cohesive way and guided way. Excuse me. And so the last piece, as I mentioned, was that learning can be lonely, right? At the end of the day, you are the one learning. So there's not always collaboration. There's not often a clear end goal that a team can rally around. So that's why we need to inspire ourselves from the multiplayer aspect of games. Whether you play at Overcooked or at Super Mario, where you have to work together to deliver the meals in time, or simply not sync, or some more competitive multiplayer modes on which esports are based on. The games are never as excited as when you play it with other humans. So there's a social piece inherently built into it that we can inspire ourselves from. And we can really bring the collaboration and the competitive aspect of game to celebrate learning. And we can do so by organizing showcase events where a team of students can present creations they've made to real public, like we did with the Future Trailblazer Challenge that you see here on the right. Middle schoolers from around the world competed using the Age of Maker game, with which they learn how to solve for the Sustainable Development Goals, which are the world's to-do list, using new technology like 3D printing, coding, or artificial intelligence. Some of them were even able to present to C-level executives and hundreds of professionals. And that induced a huge mind shift in the students' head, where instead of being seen as consumers of knowledge, they would come as producers and change makers that understand how to connect skills that they just learned to greater goals. I think this piece is really important because games are often seen as virtual and disconnected from reality, but I think they can be a great source of motivators that, if connected to the real world, can induce a positive circle that allows, especially the next generation, to start getting more involved and understand that they can shape the world around them. So I basically mentioned 5 game principles, and I want to summarize here to make sure that we have key takeaways that you can take home with. So you can transform learning experience with those 5 concepts. The first one being learning maps that can guide learners and help them understand all the different topics and how they relate with each other. You can then build journeys to motivate them through a story that they can navigate and that give them steps to follow. We can empower them through that story by breaking down into levels that are even breaking down into quests, so that every step you make feel like a baby steps until you're at the moon. And last but not least, it's really the most important piece. It's really putting the learners on stage to celebrate how they've connected their skills to greater goals, whether it's a showcase event or some kind of competitions. And I think, as I said before, how we use game as an excuse to start with the why, it can also be an excuse to introduce more purpose into learning and really leverage those greater goals that could feel intimidating at first, but if we use those game principles, suddenly become exciting and a big part of what we do in our daily lives. And like anywhere else, games are just tools. So it really comes down to how and why do we want to use them. And I deeply believe that we'll only succeed if we do that as a community. And so that's why I'm very grateful to talk in front of this Game for Change community, which I think is an amazing one. And that's why we've made the Age of Maker game open source, so that we can collaborate together and you can be inspired by it in the other way around. You'll find, if you're curious and want to learn more about Age of Makers, or even or to produce music or 3D print, you can go to ageofmakers.com, where you will find in-depth guides for educators or volunteers to run programs that already exist, or the link to the GitHub repo where you could contribute to the next version of the game, so that hopefully we can build an exciting future for learning together. Thank you so much for listening, and feel free to reach out using this contact here. I've listed my website, Twitter, and my email. I'm actually now moving to the Imaging Q&A room, and I'll be able to talk more casually and hear from you. I wish that could be a two-way conversation, so I hope we can have that there. You'll find a link to it in the chat. Thanks again for listening, and enjoy the rest of the show.